what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it.
Yesterday afternoon, the news started coming out. Full disclosure, yesterday, defensive tackle Jacobian Guillory, he went on the Jordy Culotta show, and he announced that he was coming back for another year in Baton Rouge. He was able to get that medical red shirt. If you remember, he tore his Achilles the second game of the year against Nichols. It was that home game early in that game. So he basically, his season was over before it ever really got started. I think this is big news for the LSU Tigers. Because what did we talk about coming into the season? We don't know how deep this room is going to be. We think it lacks a little bit of top-end talent, but you have a veteran presence like Jacobi Guillory to lead the way for you. Now, obviously, his junior year was his best year. 27 tackles, 11 pressures. That was all in 2023. This year was actually his fifth year of college football. But again, he was able to get that medical red shirt. I love this for Jacobi Guillory, one, because, you know, he's a guy that's from the state of Louisiana up there in Alexandria. He was highly rated coming out of high school. I mean, he was pretty much a consensus four-star player. He came in a little bit raw, a little bit overweight. I mean, he's a big guy. He had to wait his turn. This season was supposed to be his breakout year. All offseason long, we said, you need those two interior starting defensive linemen. Who's going to be next to Jacobi Guillory? We knew he had that spot locked down. But it's not just big for Jacobi Guillory, because I don't want to say it's a good thing, but it actually helped you develop these players quicker than you probably would have in terms of Jacobi Guillory going down. You get a talented player back in the rotation. You get the experience with the D-line. But let's look at what you have coming back next year. We have JVR Suggs coming back, who, while he hasn't played a ton of snaps, you know, he's a 10 to 15 snap per game guy. He's probably been your best interior pass rusher. 6'3", 295. He's eligible to come back for another year. Kimo McInneal, 6'4", 297. Ahmad Bro, who has really exceeded everybody's expectations. If you remember coming in, Ahmad Bro was a defensive end in high school, about 245, 250. He had to put on close to 40 pounds of weight, got up to 285. He's been really, really solid at that defensive line spot. He's only going to continue to get better, because not only was he not ready mentally for the college game because he's a true freshman, he had the physical limitations as well, playing a new position, having to gain all that weight, learning how to play with that additional weight. And I thought he's done an excellent job. I mean, I think out of all the freshman defensive linemen, he's been your best guy this year. Speaking of freshman defensive linemen, Dominic McKinley. I mean, he was the 5-star. He was the guy in the class that you were like, if this guy can hit, he might be the biggest get in this entire class. I mean, he's 6'6", 315. Now, Jacobi Guillory is 320 pounds. You don't have anybody on this defensive line that is 6'6", though. And the last player that was that size and that physically imposing was a Mason Smith. Now, it didn't work out for Mason, you know, for a number of reasons, one of which being injuries. But if Dominic McKinley can figure it out, he's a little bit raw this year, he could be a big guy in the rotation for you next year. Sean Washington's coming back, 6'4", 298. And then Demarion Johnson, who was a highly recruited player out of high school last year. He's redshirting this year, obviously. He's 295 as well. So your two concerns coming into this season was lack of experience and lack of size, really. I mean, you had JVR Suggs, who was hovering around 300, and then you had Jacobi Guillory. Again, Ahmad Bro had to put on weight. Kimo McInneal moved from O-line to D-line, so you were really unsure about your depth. Getting Jacobi Guillory back, you get a guy who's been in the program a number of years. You get a guy that has a lot of experience. But what you also get is him back with all these other guys that had to step up due to his injury. JVR Suggs, Ahmad Bro, Sean Washington, Dominic McKinley. It's big to get that experience back, because right now, who are your two starting defensive linemen? Defensive tackles on the interior. Gio Paez, who's really been your most consistent defensive tackle. I mean, he has been a godsend to this defensive line. And then next to him, because of the Guillory injury, because of, you know, having to shake up the rotation a little bit, Paris Shand has been a guy that's been inside a lot this year. He's gone as well. This is his last year at LSU. In all likelihood, you know, this day and age in college football, you can come back for another year, and a lot of people really don't know why. But for the most part, you have to assume that Paris Shand and Gio Paez are moving on after this year. They are out of eligibility. So you lose your starting defensive tackles. But again, Suggs, Bro, McKinley, Jacobian Guillory, all of those guys are back. And then when you go look at LSU's recruiting class, as far as the commitments right now, you got a handful of guys that can help you there as well. I mean, you got 2 or 3 really strong interior linemen. I mean, you remember Zion Williams? He committed back in July. He's 6'4", 330. Jacobian Guillory has the size. Dominic McKinley has the size. So again, you're getting big bodies. You're getting talented players, but you also have a good bit of experience coming back as well. I think you can actually be better there next year than you were this year. And that's a testament to Bo Davis. It really is, because if I would have asked you or Alondra or Jordan or anybody that follows and covers LSU, what is LSU's biggest weakness coming into the 2024 football season?
Defense.
I would bet almost unanimously defensive line would have been the answer. And it really hasn't been a weakness for you. Now, there hadn't been a ton of flash plays, except off the edge. I mean, Savion Jones and Braden Swinson have been excellent. But then his defensive tackles have held their own. And, there wasn't a ton to work with as far as experience. And then you lose your most experienced guy, Jacobian Guillory, after only 2 games. Bo Davis has done an excellent job in that regard. You also have Walter Mathis coming in. Now, he's a guy that's 6'2". He's only about 285. He's a highly recruited guy. I mean, that Walter Mathis just sounds like an LSU Tiger. They have high hopes for him as well. So you're bringing in the talented guys. The young guys from this year, again, because of Guillory, had to play a lot more than you thought they would. So they're gaining valuable experience. I mean, Ahmad Bro is getting big-time snaps in SEC games. Then you get a Guillory back that adds another body that's still your most experienced guy. He's a leader on that defense. I think this is great for the Tigers. I think it's great for Jacobian Guillory. While we had question marks going into this season at the defensive line, you have Bo Davis. You're getting all these guys back, and you're bringing in some talented freshmen. I think your defensive line can go from a question mark to possibly a position of strength going into next season.
Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.